The Rich Brother and the Poor Brother. Once there were two brothers. One was very rich and the other very poor. One day the two set off together to visit their father, who was living in a distant village. After having walked for several hours, the rich brother suggested they stop for some refreshments. They found a large shade tree, and the two settled themselves at the base and made themselves comfortable. The rich brother then took out a long, crusty loaf of fresh baked bread and began to eat. The poor brother, who had nothing to eat, asked for just a tiny bit of bread. "I'll give you some bread," said the rich brother, "if, in return, you give me the sight from one of your eyes." The poor brother, having starved because he had eaten nothing for several days, agreed to the harsh terms. Swiftly, the rich brother laid his hand against his brother's eye and spoke some magic words. He removed his hand. Just like that, the poor brother had lost use of that eye. The rich brother broke off a small piece of bread from his large loaf and handed it to his brother. Alas, the morsel vanished all too soon. Certainly, it had not stilled the famished man's hunger. Rather, it had whetted his appetite to such an extent that he spoke up again. "Brother," he implored, "I am still very hungry. May I have some more bread?" "Yes," said the other brother, "if you agree to give me the sight of your other eye." "I will give it to you," replied the poor man, desperately. Then he touched his brother's other eye and once more mumbled the strange words. Instantly night fell upon the poor man. In his blindness he groped for the rest of the bread that his brother held out to him. After he had finished eating, the older brother took his blind brother's hand and slowly led him down the road. When they came to a gallows, he seated the blind brother beneath the structure and departed. Soon it was deepest night. Bats whirled close by and owls hooted. Long before, a group of devils arrived and perched themselves upon the gallows. Safely hidden from view beneath the platform, the blind brother overheard their conversation. He surmised that one devil was in charge of the group, for he did all of the questions. "Tell me," he asked one of his colleagues, "what mischief have you caused today?" "I stopped a mountain stream," answered the preacher, with great satisfaction in his voice, "and now the villagers who are dependent upon it for their water supply will have no more water." He followed this remark with a high cackling laughter, in which he was soon joined by the other devils. "And you," the leader said to another devil, "what mischief did you cause today?" "I cast a plague upon the emperor's daughter. She's now lying in bed, suffering from terrible pain." Immediately, all the devils chattered enthusiastically about the merits of this interesting spell. At last, the chief devil interrupted the turmoil and asked one final question. "What about you?" he said. "What have you done to cause misery and mischief among the humans?" Answering proudly, the creature said, "I have caused a man to blind his own brother." He laughed with a great hollow laughter that filled the bleak air. "And to think," he continued in a cackle, "that humans are so foolish. Why, the blind fellow had to do is wash his face in the brook that flows nearby, and his sight would be restored to him." "And," screamed another devil, "all the villagers have to do is climb up the mountain cave and push aside the boulder I've placed there. The stream will then flow again. But it is as you said. Human beings are just too stupid to think of simple things like that." "It is true they are foolish beyond imagination," shouted the third devil. "For the emperor has to do is take his daughter well again, is to remove the toad I placed beneath the princess's bed and put it in her bath water." Then they joked about the pranks, and they all played at other times, and praised themselves and commented on their cleverness for outsmarting human beings. They roared with laughter, and they cackled with delight until they heard the first crowing of the cock. This was their signal to leave. Quickly they bade each other farewell, then departed, rushing off in all directions. For some time, the blind brother remained beneath the wooden structure, for he wanted to be sure that the evil creatures had really left. When he felt the sun's warmth, he mustered up his courage and crawled out from beneath the gallows. Feeling his way along the side of the road, he stumbled upon the little brook the devils had spoken of. Eagerly, he knelt down and washed his face in the cool and clear water, and his sight was restored at once. Looking around, he saw in the distance a village was nestled at the foot of a great mountain. This must be the village without water, he thought. When he arrived there, he knew that he had been right, for there was a great fear among the people. If something doesn't happen soon, he overheard one villager say to his wife, we will have to move away from here. Soon everything will be dead. What will you give me if I make your stream flow again? He asked the mayor of the town. Anything you want. Come with me then, and bring 2 strong men with iron crowbars. When the 4 men reached the cave that the devil had described, he asked the men to push aside the huge boulder that was blocking its entrance. At once, the water gushed forth and flowed down the hill to its natural bed. The grateful villagers wept and laughed when they saw the water, for they knew the terrible catastrophe had been averted. How can we reward you? They asked. I would like a carriage, 2 horses, and a coffer full of money, replied the brother. Within an hour, he had all that he had requested placed before him. The poor brother, who was now quite rich, took friendly leave of the villagers and directed his horse towards the city. As soon as he arrived there, he went to the emperor's palace and demanded an audience with the monarch. I can cure your daughter of her strange disease, he announced. But first, I would like to know what you will give me after I have accomplished this task. I shall give you anything you wish, answered the king. Anything at all. He went to the princess's chamber and ordered a bath to be prepared. Then he found the toad that was under her bed and placed it in the water. Within a few minutes, he took out the toad of the water and ordered the princess's servants to bathe their mistress. Then he returned to the king's chambers and awaited the results of his work. The servants did as they were told, and as soon as the princess was bathed in the water, she became well. Tears filled the emperor's eyes when he learned that his daughter was at last cured of the mysterious illness that had afflicted her for so long. He offered the brother gifts fit for an emperor, but he refused them all, saying he desired nothing more than 2 carriages, one to be used by him for his traveling, and second to be filled with money, and then he returned home. The next morning he sent his servant to borrow his brother's money scale. The rich brother was surprised to hear that his poor brother had returned home, but he was even more astonished to learn that his brother wanted to borrow the scale. What does he need the scale for? He asked the servant. Why, to measure his money, of course, he replied. This answer was too much for the rich brother. He decided to visit his brother immediately and to find out what had happened. Well, brother, he said, you're a rich man now, I understand, but tell me, he continued while gazing enviously at the huge sacks of money that were sitting in the room. Where did all this come from? I obtained some secret information, replied the brother, and this is the information that led to my wealth. Where did you get this secret information? Said the brother briefly. Why, the very spot where you left me, he replied. Come, pleaded the rich brother, you must take me there immediately and show me. All right, the other agreed, but you will have to do everything as we did the other day. Oh, we shall, repeated the rich man. They both set off at once, only this time the poor brother was carrying a loaf of bread. After having traveled for some distance, they sat down for refreshments. The poor brother took out the bread and began eating. Please give me a bit of bread, pleaded the rich brother. If you will give me the sight from one of your eyes, said the other. Agreed, said the rich brother. The poor brother touched his eye with his fist, spoke some words, and at once the rich brother lost sight in that eye. Then he gave him a small piece of bread. When he finished eating that, he asked for some more. If you will give me the sight of your other eye, came the reply. I will. And the poor brother touched the other eye, mumbled some words, and night fell upon the rich man. The poor brother led him slowly to the gallows, and after he placed him underneath the structure, he left. At midnight, the group of devils appeared. They perched themselves on the gallows and began to talk. Chief Devil interrupted their conversation with questions.
Tell me, he asked one of his troop, what did you do to cause mischief among humans?
Shh,
said another. Don't answer. Last week when we sat here, a blind man was hiding beneath the gallows and heard everything we said. First he cured himself. Then he produced water for the thirsty villagers. And finally he even restored the emperor's daughter to perfect health. Before you say anything, let's take a look beneath the gallows.
The devil swooped down and found the rich brother. Before saying another word, they gave him a thorough thrashing. When the other brother returned the next day, for he had anticipated that something would go wrong, he found his brother badly hurt. He carried him to the brook, and after having touched the water to his eyes, his sight was restored, and the two brothers walked home. The rich brother had learned his lesson. From that day on, he was neither greedy nor jealous of anyone's good fortune. Throughout the neighborhood, he soon became known as the most generous man who was always ready to help anyone in need.